With your color variations complete, we're going to now back away from this a little bit and explore how to do the graphics and how to experiment and revise some of your initial ideas. So to do this, we need to set up some artboard spaces. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my artboard tool. And right next to this one, I'm going to make an artboard that's about 2 of these wide. And something, actually, let's go 3 wide. About that big. Then what I'm going to do is once I've got that built, I'm going to hold down the Option key. I'm going to start to drag, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key. Then I'm going to hold down the Shift key again, so I have both artboards selected. I'm going to hold down the Option key, and I'm going to start to drag down. As I'm dragging down, I then press Shift to keep it straight. I'm going to click away. I'm going to grab one of these, Option, drag down, hold the Shift key, and now I have those set. So now each one of these is going to be my scratch paper, essentially. I'm going to be able to play around with the different variations, look at different graphics, and start to experiment without editing directly on these pieces here. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to go ahead and choose the one with the color that I think has the most potential. And now, of course, you can always change these later. I'm going to hold down the Option key. I'm going to drag that over. I'm going to do the same thing with the next one. Oops, click away. I'm going to highlight everything on that layer. Hold down the Option key. I'm going to put that one in the corner. I'm going to do the same thing with these other ones here. So I'm going to highlight. Like I said, you can always go back later and make adjustments to the color. I just want to have somewhere where we're going to do all of the experimenting on this one so we can kind of see what our original was. So I'm going to highlight everything on there, hold down the Option key and drag. Notice this time I'm not holding down the Shift key. Reason for that is I don't want that to go exactly straight. So I'm just holding down the Option to duplicate. I'm kind of tucking it over here in the corner. Now, each person's is going to be slightly different because on some of these, there's some definite artwork and some are much more focused on just the text. So what you experiment with here is going to vary depending on what you want to add to it. So with something like this, I'm going to start with this one here for the breathe, everything's okay. So with something like this, if I wanted to experiment just with the type, I could highlight the whole thing, Option click. Looks like I forgot to grab that one. Or I did, but they were underneath. There we go. And then maybe what I might do is just start playing around with the font. So if this is one that's more font heavy, then I may want to experiment a little bit more with the spacing and the readability for the text. So I might try something like that. But then if I'm looking at doing a graphic, like if I wanted to put a sun on this one, what I might want to do is go into Google and use the keyword vector. So I'm going to type in vector sun graphic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look for some that look interesting to me. So I'm just going to click and kind of start kind of clicking through and decide which ones I like the most. Some interesting things happening there. There are definitely some interesting pieces. So what I can do is once I find one that I'm interested in, like maybe I'll grab this one, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this image and I'm going to bring it over here. Now, this is not the only way to do the drawing. If you choose to do it completely from scratch, I am fine with that as well. It just will take a little bit more time to do. And actually, as I'm looking at these, I'm not that excited by them, but this is the basic idea. So if I decided, hey, I want to do something where it's got this kind of style, so I could take that as inspiration and start slowly breaking it down into shapes, looking at it where it's like, oh, it's a circle. Okay. Those look like rounded rectangles. Rounded rectangles. So I'm going to do a little rounded rectangle like that. And then I may want to put like a little highlight or something in here. So here's a quick way to do it. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to set up, like, how much do you want this rounded? Do you want it straight or do you want it rounded completely off? So we can experiment more with these corners and different things like that. But if I decided I wanted to make this have like a little bit of a highlight up at the top, I could do something like this where I end up having two shapes on top of each other. So much like we did with the flat character, when you were doing this, we were looking at ways to use the shape builder. Now we could go over under properties, pull open my properties, and you could use the minus from front. So now I've got that. I'm just going to grab a lighter version. I might shrink that down just a little bit. There we go. So now I've got like a little bit of a highlight down here. What I'd like to do is I want to put like a little bit of a taper. What that means is where you end up taking one edge. Maybe I'll kick this in, make this a little bit more playful like that. Group those. And so you can start to deconstruct what do you want this to actually look like. So with something like this, I can play around with rotating things around. Duplicate that. I'm holding down the shift key. It'll keep it in 45-degree angles. Transform, and I'm going to reflect this. This time, though, I'm going to reflect it horizontally and copy them. This is similar to, you could use the reflection tool if you wanted to. I'm just going to use the transform, reflect. This time I'm going to do it vertically and copy. So here's a really quick way to be able to create that kind of look. And then maybe I want to do another little highlight over on this side so that there's this little like half moon kind of thing happening on the sun. So then I might use the shape builder option to get rid of those. So that same little highlight. Moving this over here and just kind of experimenting with the different pieces. Now you'll notice these little the beams on the outside, I ended up doing something where I put them on top and I want to actually put those underneath. So I'm going to highlight them all. Oops, let me actually get that one too. Arrange, send to back. So in a short amount of time, you can build something just based off of looking at something else that was there. So that's one option. So then what I may do is I may experiment with like the different sizes and stuff, or I might try, I'll shrink this down so it's not taking up as much space. Or I might decide to use the pencil tool or the paintbrush to be able to draw things. Now, there's a lot of different ways. You just have to ask questions on what's going to work. Now, I did also include here, I have some tutorials, and we'll dig deeper into these over the course of the next few days. But right here, I do have some things for adding texture. I would hold off on that until the end. There's some things with the blend tool, some concentric lines, doing stuff inside of a drawing, adding more grain, doing some drips, being able to create perfect rainbows, clipping masks, textures, different things like that. So we can slowly go back and refine that as we go along. But since each person's designs are going to be different, what you have exactly on these artboards may vary. But what I'm looking for is something where you've got a lot of little variations, and this is your scratch paper area. So for example, I've got this piece here, and I may start playing around with more stuff that I want to do. Maybe I want to do a hillside. Maybe I want to put something else there. I wouldn't spend forever on one. Go to the next one and start figuring out what are you going to do with that piece. And then the next one, make some variations on that, make some variations on that, and make some variations on that. If you need to resize things, remember you can just highlight, hold down your shift key. You can go larger or smaller based on what it is that you're working with. So experiment with those, and we'll talk more about how to do more stuff with topography. And if you're feeling like some of your text just isn't looking right, call me over. I'll be happy to help you out.